Hello everyone, this is BritSimon. Obviously we've got some important things to discuss regarding the coronavirus. As of this evening, President Trump has suspended entry for all 26 countries of Europe, with I think the exception of the United Kingdom, but he has suspended entry into the USA for a period of 30 days. So the coronavirus is taking a grip in Europe, and so far the numbers in the USA are lower than can be found in Europe. And so Trump is doing this, he believes, to stop the spread of the virus into the USA. In one sense, it's probably the correct thing to do. People shouldn't be traveling now unless it's absolutely necessary. On the other hand, of course, one of the reasons that our numbers of infections in the USA are so low is because the testing is not being done in a wide enough fashion to really know the true numbers of people being infected. So it's clear that we're at the beginning of this pandemic. The WHO, the World Health Organization, has today classified the coronavirus as a pandemic, meaning that it is a fast spreading and new virus. And so this is obviously very serious and is already affecting people. So I thought I'd better make a video to try and explain to people what will be going on and people's options for various scenarios. So I'd like to go through that and address particular cases and give you as much information as I can. Of course, it has to be said, the announcement from President Trump has just happened a couple of hours ago. There's very limited information, and some of what I'm going to tell you is based on research I've been doing over the last couple of days in anticipation of something like this. But the speed at which this has happened this evening has caught me and others by surprise. So nobody is fully prepared, right? So let's talk about that. Okay, so what will be the effect? Well, the immediate effect on a case, someone coming from Europe, is probably the first thing I would want to discuss. It may be that someone is sitting there with having been through their interview already and has been approved for their interview and is sitting there with their passport and their visa in hand, and perhaps that visa is due to expire in the next few weeks. That person is in a difficult position, clearly, and will want to know what the heck to do. So what I've been doing is researching the standard answer I give to people, which is that the one-time immigrant visa that is stamped into the passport is called the I551. Cannot be extended for any reason. That's what I've been telling people for years. I knew it to be 99.9% true. It is generally not extended for any reason. However, there have been cases in the past where embassies have been able to extend that visa. I just haven't publicized it because it's generally not available. And the standard that needs to be met is that someone needs to have had an unavoidable reason for them not to have been able to travel before the deadline. So this is clearly an unavoidable reason. If somebody is in the scenario I just explained, they're traveling from the EU, from one of these affected countries, 26 affected countries, and their visa is due to expire in the next few weeks, then that person unavoidably cannot travel to the USA. Okay? So in that scenario, here's what you would do. You would write to the embassy. This application has to be made in writing. There's no special format of how the application is made. There's no form to fill out. This is a rare case, and I can't guarantee that this will work. But you can write to the embassy citing COVID-19, the coronavirus outbreak, citing President Trump's action this evening and blocking entry for people, and explaining that you need an extension on your visa, on the I551 visa. They may, not 100% certain, but they may give that permission. They may extend the visa. They may ask you to sit the medical again, because part of immigration law is that the visa, it needs to be used. This is the one-time use visa, which is the entry visa to the USA, where you enter for the first time and then you become an LPR, lawful permanent resident. Once you've entered, you're an LPR, right? So this is a one-time use visa. You only ever use it the one time. It's a special visa, the immigrant visa. And so once that is stamped into your passport, it has an expiry date on there, which is based on the medical date plus 6 months. Okay, so if you interviewed a few months ago, October, November, and you took your medical, let's say, in September, you could pretty much be running out of time almost immediately. So this will affect some people where they've been approved in October, November, December, or more recently, and running out of time because the expiry date on their visa is coming up soon. Now, obviously, the 30-day period may be removed or it may be extended. We just don't know. We can't anticipate what will happen. So this advice might apply to more people over time. But what I would say is, if you are facing a position where your visa is about to expire right now, over the next few weeks, during the period of this travel ban on Europeans, then you contact the embassy. I can't guarantee it's going to work, but it is technically possible. It is possible. It's out there. Okay, so that's probably the most pressing concern. Let's talk about some of the other scenarios that I'm undoubtedly going to be asked about over the coming days, and talk about what's going on. So the announcement made by Trump this evening doesn't automatically mean that visa interviews will be cancelled. The DV lottery process, like other processes, will continue. However, in places where there are big outbreaks, there are sort of common sense precautions about not travelling to public places. And it may be that embassies will start closing down their operations as much as possible in the coming days, if they haven't already. Okay, so I do expect to see some embassies begin to cancel their interviews and delay interviews, which is obviously going to cause difficulties. So this isn't just related to Europe, it could be in other places too. And where the coronavirus spreads and becomes more of an issue, the local embassies are going to be more and more leaning towards that. I myself, for example, in my own job here in the USA and California, my company has just announced that it's encouraging everybody to work from home until the end of March, basically a couple of weeks from now, rather than coming to the office. And I know of a number of other companies in the Silicon Valley where I work, which are doing the same thing. So it's entirely likely that the embassies will take that same sort of approach. They will not want to expose their workers. They won't want to have people being exposed by being in close contact with other people. And they won't want the responsibility of trying to keep a clean, sterile environment. It's not going to happen. So it makes sense that they're going to start cancelling interviews. And as I say, this could be inside of Europe or in other places. It could be anywhere. So that will begin to happen, and the chaos that causes could affect the DV lottery this year longer term. So there could be other impacts. What that will be, it's impossible for me to say. So I appreciate that people are going to be asking me these questions, but please, I can't read the future. I don't know how big the spread of COVID-19 is going to get. All the indications are that it's going to get bigger and bigger. And in some countries, particularly with aging populations or perhaps lower standards of hygiene, I expect the problem is going to expand pretty quickly. So we'll just have to wait and see exactly what effects happen over the coming weeks. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to try and predict what will happen to the pandemic itself. I'm really only talking about the effects that will come on DV lottery cases because of this. Okay. So, if I were sitting in any other country that's not affected by this particular ban that's been announced this evening, and I was sitting there with my approved visa in hand, I would be looking for a way to get to the USA now for an activation trip. Even if it's a short activation trip, you can come, enter the USA, and then leave. You can leave the same day. There's no problem in that. You can leave very quickly. So, you know, you'll find that there's plenty of flights available. The flights will probably be cheaper. You are exposing yourself, obviously, by traveling. But if I were in that situation, I would not want to gamble my one time in my life opportunity of getting the green card. And I wouldn't want to gamble on the hope that the embassy would extend the visa. I would frankly take my chances in traveling and potentially exposing myself to the virus itself in order to make the initial trip into the USA. Once you've done that, you can leave. You're an LPR at that point, a lawful permanent resident. Whether you have the green card in hand or not, it doesn't make any difference. You can leave the USA, go back to your life, and you could be away from the USA for up to 1 year. So by that time, this virus situation will have presumably blown over. They'll have this under control within that time period, right? So I was messaged by someone from, I think, Australia over the last couple of days, and they were suggesting they were going to travel in April. Like I say, if I were them, this is a fast-moving situation. If I had the financial means and I was in that position, I would get on a plane now. I would go to Hawaii or, just make a quick trip from wherever I was in the world in order to make that entry. Now, of course, that's a big deal for other people in terms of just making a quick trip. It might only be a couple of $1,000s, but that might be a fortune to some people around the world, so it's not going to be possible for everyone. Which is why the fallback position of asking for an extension on the visa might be a possibility. But as I say, I can't guarantee that's going to work for everyone. Okay, so that covers, I think, the two main scenarios I wanted to cover, which is the EU people and also people around the world. Back to reiterate what I said a few moments ago. Other than those immediate impacts, other than embassies closing down because they don't want people coming in to spread the virus inside, there's no reason technically why the process can't continue, even in these countries in Europe that have been affected by the travel ban this evening for the virus. Even in those countries, people could still go through their process and go through the interview process. But as I say, it will depend on whether the embassy is actually allowing interviews to go ahead or not. Okay, just a couple more details about the proclamation itself and how that will affect people. So the proclamation has a couple of important points to it. One of which is that an existing LPR, someone who has already been to the USA, activated their status, whether or not they hold the green card or not, but actually a lawful permanent resident. People in that position can enter in the same way that American citizens will be allowed to enter. the USA, and spouses of American citizens, etc. There are certain exceptions to the banning of people, the exclusion of entry of people. LPRs are considered like citizens in that way. So if you're an existing LPR abroad in Europe, and any other country that gets subsequently banned, and you're traveling and you had intended to travel back, you will be allowed to travel back. There might be some sort of enhanced screening. The details of that will probably be explained over the coming days and hours. It might consist of temperature checks or some sort of screening. There may even be advice to self-quarantine at home once you arrive back in the USA. There may, the details of that will have to be worked out, but you will be allowed to return if you're already a green card holder / LPR. That's the same thing. Another question that arose is, since the UK is so easy to travel to from France or Germany or Spain or Italy, it's so easy to travel to the UK, could you travel to the UK and then fly from the UK to the States? I would say you would be unwise to do that. The proclamation itself has a clause in it that talks about willful misrepresentation, someone who enters the country by willful misrepresentation, fraud, other means of illegal entry, etc. And that person would be prioritized for removal from the USA. The details of that are not clear at all. It's not clear whether that would include lawful permanent residents who just activated. But nevertheless, I don't think it's a smart idea to try and pull one over on the US government at the beginning of your relationship and your time in the USA. So I'm not suggesting that people do that, and I would not suggest people do. If you are in the UK and you live in the UK and that's your actual place of residence, yeah, fine. You're probably going to be allowed to enter over the coming days. If the outbreak becomes worse in the UK itself, then of course the ban could be extended to the UK or to any other country. The only reason I believe that the UK has been singled out is because it's an island itself. It has some enhanced control over its borders, unlike the other European countries where you can drive from country to country. And it's well understood that although there is a quarantine in place, for example, that covers all of Italy now, there's no practical measures in place. There's no sort of border control or police presence, etc., stopping travel. So in theory, the quarantine is a strong suggestion as opposed to an actual sort of border control situation. It's not possible to lock down Italy in that way. UK is a special case, not because it's been better at controlling the outbreak of the virus, although cases are lower there so far than in other European countries, but more because it's an island. So that's probably the explanation behind that, although it's not always clear with the Trump administration how they come to decisions. That probably covers that. So I think I've probably covered everything I can usefully cover for you this evening. If I get more information, I'll create more information and update this video or create another video. Please keep in touch with what information I have through my blog and at this channel. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can get updates like this one. Especially over the coming months, it's going to be important for your case to be able to do that. I hope that's helpful anyway. All right, good luck everyone, and obviously just about COVID-19, practice good hygiene. The virus itself is not particularly bad for a fit, healthy young person. But the terrible consequences of the virus being allowed to spread is that older people or people at risk who've got particularly respiratory problems are more at risk because healthy young people are transmitting the virus from person to person. So all of us need to do what we can to increase our hygiene procedures. Make sure you wash your hands, use soap and water, use hot water, wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. Standard stuff really. We're all grown-ups, we should know how to behave, but at this time a quick sort of rinse of your hands under the water with cold water and no soap is not good enough, never has been frankly, but it's certainly not good enough at the moment. Avoid touching your hands and your face, and just use some common sense principles. And if you can avoid public places, and if you can work at home, do that now, whether or not your governments and your businesses are asking you to do that now anyway. Avoid being the person that spreads the virus. Maybe it's only going to be a cold for you, maybe it's only going to be a headache for you, but it might kill some older person. So take some responsibility and do what you can to avoid the spread of the virus. By slowing the spread of the virus down, we give the medical community more time to come up with treatments, vaccinations, more time to prepare the hospitals, and potentially, we don't know for a fact, but potentially maybe the warmer weather will help. We don't know that that's true. Trump has said that, but he went to school with with 6-year-olds. That's where he got his degree. So who knows? Who knows whether that's true or not? So time will tell. But anyway, exercise some common sense precautions for the good of others, even if it's not for yourself. Okay, all right. That's about it. A lecture as well to send you on your way. All right. Have a good night then, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.